Welcome to the Grow and Expand with S podcast, where we break through limitations, we heal from within, and we step into our most expansive, fulfilled, and happiest lives. Now, any journey of growth and expansion and stepping into all of our heart's desires will at times feel convoluted, overwhelming, it can be confusing, and it can also get really lonely. And so that is why at the very heart of the Grow and Expand with S podcast, it is my intention to bring to you the conversations, the community, the tools, the practices, and the techniques to help you bridge the gap from wherever it is that you find yourself today to wherever it is you are headed. Welcome to today's episode, where we are going to talk about what I call anxious attachment. When I started this podcast series, I had to have a think about kind of what content I wanted to bring to the audience and how and when. And of course, there was those foundational topics that I absolutely wanted to bring to anyone and everyone, because it is the foundation of the practices and the tools that will help you grow and expand towards whatever it is you seek, or away from whatever it is that you seek to move away from. But we have reached the space in this podcast where I get to talk about topics that really impacted me at the start of my journey. And I get to kind of share with you what they are, how they manifest, and what I did and what I teach my clients to do to break through them, to heal from within, and to grow and expand beyond them. And I'm actually incredibly excited about this podcast for that reason, because an anxious attachment, which is just the topic I've assigned to it, because my definition is a little bit different to sort of, I suppose, the mainstream textbook definition. It was the thing, if I look back, and if there was one thing that I would have wanted for that Sharné, if I could kind of give her one thing, it would be the ability to move from an anxious attachment to a secure attachment. So here's what I mean by anxious attachment. By anxious attachment, I mean that you are attached to something external to you to ease the anxiousness inside of you. So you are feeling unsettled or anxious or uncomfortable or fear-based within you. And instead of having that ability to work through it on your own and to find your own truth and your own confidence and your own place, and sort of nurturing that and giving yourself whatever it is you need in the moment, you attach to things or people, and relationships is obviously where the term originated from, but it's not just direct, it's not just relevant to relationships. You look to external things to give you whatever it is that you perceive you need, to find that space in you that eases the anxiety. And so for me, particularly when I started off in my journey, it actually was in relationships where it was the most crippling. And I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. Like, an anxiously attached person is consistently and always inside of themselves, feeling not good enough, not lovable, not worthy, uncertain, and yucky and icky, because none of those things are great. And they are consistently looking outside of themselves, particularly to their main relationships, for affirmations and for validations and for emotional and physical and energetical cues that they are okay. And then when they get those cues, now we can take a breather. And if they don't get those cues, they do whatever it is that they need to do to get the cues from the people and the relationships out there. And obviously the number one problem with that is you cannot please everyone. You cannot live a life that's untrue to you just because you're seeking an artificial feeling from someone else that's already available and accessible in you. And you'll die trying. You will burn out, be overwhelmed, exhausted, and anxious, and you will die trying. Because what pleases this one is different to what pleases this one, which is what's different to pleasing this one. And all of a sudden, this one told me they wanted this, and now I've given them this, but now they've moved the goalpost, and it is a shit show. And I remember back to those days where I felt consistently reliant on others to make me feel a certain way, and they never really did. And I was always just anxious and overwhelmed, thinking about it like you go out for a night out on the town, and all you do the next morning is think about the things you might have said or done to offend that wasn't proper, that was judged, that was bad. And you miss, it sucks the joy, it steals the joy and the fun and the laughter and the amazingness of all pieces of the night. And perhaps they were those moments, but equally, you're the sum of your whole, right? Like, you're human. Welcome to life. Number one lesson, you're human. You're not perfect. And that's okay. And if you're waking up that next day just consistently thinking of what was bad or judged or someone else mightn't like or could have offended or whatever, like, if that's where you spend majority of your time, you're missing out on all the most beautifulest, wonderfulest moments of laughter and friendship and joy and fun. And it's not something you can really look to anyone to give to you, to move from that sort of anxious, attached way of being. Yes, in that moment, you might text your friends and kind of go, ooh, like sense from their responses whether it's okay. And then you can sort of self-soothe through that. But God forbid that they don't reply for an hour, because now it's escalated and they just not replied for an hour because they're in their house thinking the same thing and probably crippled up sleeping. And it's this vicious cycle, and it can absolutely be avoided, and you can absolutely move away from an anxious attachment style into a secure attachment style. And I'm going to tell you today how. The number one piece of work to do, if you have related to what I've just spoken about and you go, yes, that's me. I'm always wondering who I offended, who I pissed off, what I can change, what I need to do, what, but it's always out there. Then this is what you need to do. You are looking to someone else for something that only you can turn around and give to yourself. So the next time it comes up, and the things that will trigger everyone is different, and this is why this is a personal body of work. And I can share with you things that's been relevant for me, and you'll be able to relate on a level. But when you get to your roots, it's a personal thing. And so this is where personal work comes into play, and personal coaching, someone who can guide you there. In the next moment where it happens, it's about turning inwards and going, what am I seeking from that person? And why am I seeking that from them? And what am I worried about for myself, to the extent that if that was true or going to happen? And it's sort of asking these questions, and it's looking at the part in you and or the parts in you that manifests during this process. And it's about getting to know them. It's about looking at those parts and going, what is it that you're so worried about? What is it that you feel so insecure about? What is it that you think will happen or won't happen for you? And it's about reminding them of all of their wonderful qualities and all of the good things that they bring to the table, and all of the joy and laughter that they deserve, that's just right on this other side of working through this narrative. And it's about giving that part an opportunity to get aired and to be heard and seen and understood and be met with compassion during that process. And it's also about hearing that part's origin story, because that part will have an origin story of where it was at the height of, like, I suppose, an escalated level, where it stems from. And then it's about talking to that part and reminding that part, once you are connected to it at this level, that perhaps that is a possibility of happening, and that has happened, because that is why the part is there. But that's not to say it's always going to happen. That's not to say it should have happened. That's not to say it was the right thing that happened. And that's not to say that you spend the rest of your life in all of that just because it did happen once, twice, who knows, depends, right? But you find that root cause. And the power in this exercise is so monumental because it's not just the things and the pieces that you'll discover during this journey that is so transformative. It is the relationship that you build for and through yourself by showing up and acknowledging and understanding and accepting and loving about yourself. Like really, that's the intangible thing that is happening. So that next time when you did a very stupid thing on a night out or not on a night out, and that uncertainty and those anxious thoughts and that fear comes in and up, because you have built this relationship of trust and acceptance and love and compassion and empathy and understanding with yourself, the next time that happens, you'll go, okay, I'm not feeling great, but my relationship isn't there. It's here first and foremost. So let me work through this. That might not have been great, or perhaps it was fine, but let's say it wasn't. That's okay. I'm human. That's okay. Shit happens. Now, that's not to say I'm going to go repeat and self-sabotage. And if you do this work, you won't. You won't self-sabotage. It's about going, I'm accepting. And I know all my good parts too. I know all my worthy parts too. All of us are worthy, but you know what I mean for the sake of the conversation. I know how lovable I am. I know how unique I am. I know all the things I do and bring and mean. And I'm so proud of myself for that. And I'm so certain in myself for that. And so be that as it may, if someone else can't accept that and I lose a thing or a person or a money or a transaction or whatever, then that wasn't meant for me. Because anything that drops away that quickly, when you are the sum of your whole, and that is not the only thing you are, that is not meant for you. You open that door and you sage it out. Sage it out. And you close that door because you know that anything that is worthy of you will see you for all that you are. And so that process and that relationship that you get to have with yourself, when you do this body of work, it just fundamentally changes that peace, that certainty, that surety, that confidence, that breath, that expansiveness. It changes that from here, from within you. And so you no longer need to seek it outside of yourself. Okay, and we all love external validation, but it's not out of a desperate need so that you can regulate from within. It's a value add. It's a nice, beautiful way to connect. They giving and you're receiving, not you're demanding and they've got to give or take. And so from this space, it is the most inner freedom is the word that I would describe with this process. It's the most inner free you will ever be the day that you know your parts and yourself and you accept. And it doesn't mean that you give all parts the steering wheel at all times. You know where you're headed. You know what your values are. You know what it is that you want or deserve or desire from life. And you've got a leader in you that'll take you there. But you can still make room for all of those other parts. You can still hear their stories. You can still hear their fears. You can still have conversations with them. You can still meet them. And through all of that, this inner confidence means that you regulate. Like another short way of saying it is it's internal regulation, right? But this is the way I got to internal regulation. If someone just said regulate internally, like that wasn't ever going to really mean something to me. I think what's really important to talk about is where we lose internal regulation or where it goes wrong. Where it goes wrong. Most of the time, internal regulation goes wrong because you're a child that is not accepted, seen, heard, understood, and accepted from a main attachment figure. So you'll have needs, you'll have wants, you'll have desires, and you'll kind of ask for them, or you'll be the thing, and you will look to these people to mirror at you like, you're good. and they will mirror at you, you're not good. And so you'll go, uh-oh, like this isn't a match with that. And I'm dependent on that to keep me alive. Like this is biologically speaking, we are hardwired to not see our parents as, or our caregivers as wrong. Because if we saw them as wrong and they're the thing that keeps us alive, biologically it means we're in threat and we can't, obviously that's too much. That's system overload when you're that age. And so you're like, now there's this disconnect between what I am, what you're telling me I should be, and I can't quite regulate through that. So because they use us, they use the adults around them to regulate, which is this beautiful thing called mirroring. We mirror each other. You walk into a conversation, you see someone smiling, laughing, and saying something loving, and you'll just feel that, right? You see someone talking bitter, judging, meanly, dragging people down, you'll feel that. You'll feel that. It's like we mirror each other. And we all have the ability to do this at all times. But the number one place that this plays out is when we raise our kids or when we are kids. And when we raise our kids, whatever we're mirroring at them will become their reality. Or their perceived reality, right? And we've got to be so mindful about it, at the same time acknowledging we're humans and we're not going to get it right all the time. And when they grow up, they can learn to do this themselves. But it's this beautiful space where you can kind of get to mirror someone through something, and that will become their internal dialogue. If your kid drops a plate and you go, no, right? And like, I know this is an audio, and so I was more doing this for the video, but if you're like swearing at them and yelling at them and raging at them, okay, they probably started off with, ooh, like this happened. And now that is the mirroring that's coming at them. So next time they do this, this is how they will feel about what's just happened. And guess what? What's just happened is you were human. You dropped a plate. Welcome to life. But you will carry that. And obviously it doesn't happen just once or twice, dependent on how big the scenario is. It's typically you've been parented the same way over and over and over again. So the messaging and the mirroring gets kind of solidified and solidified and solidified. And so as a kid, you learn to please someone outside of yourself to ease the anxiety within you, but it's self-abandonment to an extent. And at some point as an adult, you have no idea about who you are. You have no sense of self. You have no ability to regulate from that place or to find your grounding and your worth and your value from that place without the people kind of around you. And it's a shit place to be in. It was awful. It is like the number one thing I'm so grateful about so many things of this entire journey, but it is one thing I will forever be in such gratitude for, because no one can really give you that. And people's expectations are just their own expectations on themselves based on how they grew up and what was mirrored to them. And it's no place to look. It's no place to look, right? The other thing that can really, really inflame anxious attachment, particularly with kids, but adults do this all the time to each other too. And if you were a kid that it happened to, it feels so much worse when you're an adult when it happens, and it's stonewalling. It's like, let's say a partner did something and maybe it was right, maybe it was wrong. It's probably irrelevant, because sometimes we do things that are right as human beings and sometimes we do things that are wrong as human beings, and that all just makes us human. And you never deserve punishment and scolding and stonewalling, whether you did something right or whether you did something wrong. Okay, like someone can speak to you and they can guide you towards potentially a higher state of being that's more expansive in like kind of the greater good from a place of love, but you don't deserve scolding and stonewalling and yelling and all that type of thing. But unfortunately, this happens because when we're children, it happens, and it's just a societal thing that we're all kind of working really hard to shift out of. And I think we're doing a beautiful job through conversations like this. And anyways, it's like, let's say you did something either right or wrong. And that's obviously that right or wrong is always also a matter of perception. And there's very rarely a holistic, guaranteed kind of truth. Of course there are, and there's things that's a bit more clear in that regard. But when it's two partners, for example, like that line is blurred, because what this person thinks is good or bad is from their perspective and frame of reference, and what this person thinks is good and bad is from their perspective. And the truth can be subject to a million different outcomes depending on who the partners are, what the circumstances are, etc. Say you've done something and your partner ignores you, quiet, silent treatment. And like their whole energy is like huffy, puffy, mad, kind of like shaming, but all in the quiet, like they don't talk to you. And you're like, you're trying like throw this little line out. God, I used to do it all the time. Like you try this little line or this, you just want to get from them that it's okay so that you can feel okay. And that is a really kind of unserving thing for any loving relationship and any healthy relationship, because what's a much healthier thing there is, well, first I want to say, if you're a person that's in that, obviously the work I spoke about before will really help you with it, because you'll feel so confident and sure in yourself that in that moment you'll go, wow, that's really you and not me, because I'm human. I either did or didn't even make a mistake, and we can disagree and we can have different wants, needs and desires and expectations, but that type of treatment isn't in accordance with how I treat myself. Therefore, it's not what I expect others to treat from me. And then you have those open dialogues and you have those conversations, and either they'll meet you in it and you'll both grow and expand together, and that's phenomenal. The love that's birthed through that process is just insanely amazing, or they won't, and you'll love yourself so much you'll walk away, right? You won't just cut them off straight away. You'll have the conversations first. You'll open the invitation, but you'll just naturally be able to do this because that is who you are then, because you've met yourself there. But when we've got children, obviously the way to kind of handle that, and I mean, I've definitely done this. I'm so angry and like I just want to blow up, and I know blowing up isn't great either. So then it's like I don't want to talk. I remember something that happened probably a couple of months ago now, and I just didn't want to talk. And then what I did was I said, hey, I'm having some really big feelings at the moment, and sometimes when mum has big feelings, I say things that I later regret and that doesn't serve anyone. So I'm being quiet at the moment because I love you and because I never want to hurt you unintentionally. So I'm just going to be quiet, and I need to work through my feelings before I meet you. And I remember thinking, you know, shit, is that the right thing to kind of do? And then I just went, relax, Sharné. You're doing the best you can with the tools you've got in the moment you have. And that is exactly what you are doing. And it's just about communicating to that person that, like, I might need some time and some big things is happening in me, but I'm not doing it to punish you. I'm doing it to work through my own stuff so I can show up in kind of the best version of myself that there is for this relationship, whether that's parents with kids or whatever other kind of relationship that there is. And the same goes with partners. My husband and I have this conversation kind of all the time where we'll say, you know, this is kind of happening, and then the other person will be, you know, I'll be like, ooh, I remember I'd be like, you're stonewalling me. And he's like, no, I'm not stonewalling you. I'm not ready to talk. And I'd be like, yeah, okay, cool. And, you know, and then you kind of have to figure your way out of how to work through that. But you do. And then you kind of grow together. And it's this messy, beautiful thing called life. And yeah, I just really wanted to kind of quickly touch on stonewalling, because if you're an anxiously attached person and you haven't found that secure attachment within yourself yet, or that ability to do that kind of majority of the times, and you look to others, and when there's stonewalling or silent treatment or that kind of like guilt and shame, it's the worst thing for that person. And it's also the worst thing the other person can do. And at the end of the day, we all have love and good intentions right at the core of us. And we just don't always have the tools and the techniques, because these things aren't nearly talked about enough. And it should be taught in schools and from such a little age, which is why I'm so passionate about this podcast. So I hope that you have learned so much today about anxious attachment, and that you will be able to take away some key sort of aspects or tools or perspectives on it, no matter which side of the fence you are. I hope the number one thing you took away is that you're human, and that's beautifully, amazingly okay to be human. You are not perfect. Don't aim for perfection. Right? Acceptance is one of the highest energetic vibrational frequencies that there is. Acceptance. It's right up at the top there. And I hope that you take that within you and into your week. I hope everyone has a beautiful week. If you resonated with this content, please make sure to like and subscribe and share, because the more we do that, the more people it'll reach, the more people that need these tools and practices and insights, and sometimes just the conversation, the more they can access it, and the more we can grow and expand together. So have a lovely week, and thank you so much for joining me today. All of my love, S.